is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. If you don't know who that was, you're just an idiot, because there's no mistake in that band anytime you hear it. That's new stuff, of course. That one is called Distortion. It's from a new record called The Wings of War. The band, of course, is Overkill. And on the phone right now, we have the main man himself, the guy that blitzes everything, let alone Overkill. It is Bobby Blitz from Overkill. How are you, Bobby?
Mr. Classic Metal Show, Chris Aiken. How are you, bro? Good to talk to you. This is our bi-yearly conversation, I think.
You know what, though, man? And I honestly think the reason that we do that is because you, unlike just about anybody else that came up in the era, of this type of music, you have stuck to the original principle, which is record, tour, repeat, record, tour, repeat. No breaks, no stops. You just do it every single time.
Well, I'll tell you something. It makes us happy. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? I mean, you do this because you like to do it. And I also think that it keeps our stuff fresh. To some degree, you can kind of gauge how you evolve. Now, I know Overkill is not a progressive band, or
sure,
there's been huge evolutions, but for sure we see chemistry changes from year to year. And if the material is going to be fresh, it's got to be recorded fresh. So the 2-year routine always seems to work for us. And if it's not broken, we're not going to try to fix it.
No doubt, man. Well, before we get into the Wings of War, I just have to ask you just kind of a career-spanning question. It's something I've meant to ask you every single time, and I've never have. You guys, if Overkill's nothing else, whether a person likes Overkill, hates Overkill, or somewhere in the middle, there's a consistency with Overkill. If you pick up the very first record you guys ever did, or, Necroshine, or the Wings of War, whatever it is, you are going to get something that absolutely will sound like Overkill. And there was a time, 15, 18, 20 years ago, when a lot of your contemporaries that were doing the same style of music were experimenting, whether it was, Metallica or Megadeth or Anthrax or whoever. They took these turns that were, drastic and with varying results. I've always been curious for you as the leader of Overkill, if you ever looked around and said, maybe it's our turn to try and do something different, but then never decided to do that.
Geez, I don't think it was ever a conscious thought. I know that other elements have crept into our music, sure. Whether it be groove that we injected into our style of thrash in the 90s, but it wasn't to necessarily go in a distinct different direction, but enhance the direction we were headed in regardless. We had groove in the band as far back as Horoscope. So there was never a discussion, for instance, about this. I remember a conversation with Dee Dee Verney. It was back somewhere in the 90s, this area talking about it. And we've been friends first for longer than even partners in writing songs. And we've always been pretty straight shooters with each other. I mean, we're both Jersey guys. And
sure.
I said, what are you thinking for the next record? And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, what are you thinking? He goes, well, we're going to do what we always do, right? I said, yeah, all right. And he goes, we're not going to reinvent the fucking wheel, right? I said, no, we're not. He goes, let me tell you something, Blitz. There's nothing more dangerous than two guys from Jersey with nothing to lose. Somewhere in there, I think to myself, there was never a reason to change.
Right.
We understood it.
You're right, but even you have to admit you're one of the few that has understood it. With a 30 whatever year career that you've had, you don't have a hard rock record in there or something with industrial, I mean, there might be an industrial element here and there, but you didn't do a full-on industrial record or a pop record or a classic rock record. Everything has been what Overkill is.
Well, I think there's something to be said about not having an identity crisis.
Right.
You're having an identity crisis, keep looking at yourself in the mirror saying, who am I? You're going to be wasting a lot of time trying to figure that out. I mean, it's very easy for me. I think now for 30 years, most days that are under 80 degrees, I pull on motorcycle boots and a pair of Levi's. I know who I am.
Right.
It's not a matter of having to waste my time by trying to find other things. Now, obviously, exploration is great, but in my case, or our case, what's worked is consistency. Let's say dedication to a principle, because we got what we wanted when we understood who we were, and it kind of freed us up to be able to, let's say, even keep that routine that we do, to go every couple of years, to be visible, to tour, to do the stuff we like to do. So it's worked, man. I mean, I don't ever, would never criticize somebody else's way of doing it, but the way that we've done it for us has worked for us. So that's the most important.
Well, it certainly has, man. And no change this time, for people that love Overkill as I do, the Wings of War, exactly what you want. But, you know, it's funny because, you know, I get the Holics link from the publicist saying, okay, you've got the new Overkill. And I'm excited. It's that weird thing because I'm excited to get new Overkill. And at the same time, I know I'm not going to get something where I'm like, oh, what the fuck is that? You know, it's like, it's a home run every time. And, you know, this one, no exception, man. It's heavy. It's as heavy as anything you've ever done. And, you know, the ironic thing is most of us are starting at least a little bit to mellow. Doesn't seem like you guys are at all, man. This is as heavy as anything, if not the heaviest thing that you've done.
Well, I'll tell you this. The secret is don't buy any of your drugs on the street. Go straight to the pharmacy. You'll get... I think, you know what I think this record has? It says Overkill at the end of the day, but there's a difference in it. And there was a little bit of a template was broken on this record. I think that we had a template that was kind of set from the Ironbound record. I don't think it was a conscious template, but for sure subconscious when I think of the records that followed it. I think what broke this template was a change in chemistry. Okay. We had Jason Bittner was inducted into the band as our drummer, a full member of this band. Comes in, and we knew that would change us. Mm-hmm. But we had the luxury of touring with him for a year. So we could, we've known what he's done. We knew what his abilities were. He's a top-notch drummer, maybe one of the top 5 in the genre.
Sure.
And I'm only saying that with regard to being humble. I think he's the best when it comes to this. But we embraced that chemistry on the road for a year. So we saw that this was changing the band. It was different for me after the first show I did with him in Moscow. I said, this is now different. It's not marketably different, but for me on the inside, I noticed the differences. So by the time we were recording with him, everybody was used to that chemistry change and had already embraced it and became part of that change. So what I noticed on this record, at the end of the day, the Overkill stamp is all over it. There are bat wings and green all over this record.
Right.
But the point is that it gave us the opportunity to feel as if we were doing something different within our own mold with this new member in the band and his excitement and his ability.
Sure. And the one thing as a fan listening to it that really jumped out at me is how unbelievably tight every song is. These songs are not that you guys have ever been a jam band. You're certainly not that, but I mean, these songs are, tight as a gnat's ass type of tight, man. I mean, really hard stop starts and directional changes within the songs. It's a refreshing sound on many of these songs.
Well, I was thinking frog's ass, but I'll go with gnat's ass. Gnat's ass is actually smaller than a frog's ass, so it's even a bigger compliment. But I agree with you. And one of the things that I think we started seeing as being, internal, that tightness, that surgical precision, with still having it feel natural and uncomputerized, was a blessing for the rest of us to try other shit.
Right.
And what I started noticing was Dave Linsk. Hey, I got this. Hey, I got that. Hey, I got this. And I'm like, look at Mr. fucking Speed Kill Hate over here. He's doing all these melodic, great guitar lines, overdubs. Now, I started echoing a lot of that melody, or was inspired by a bunch of it, and started infusing my own melody in between that surgical precision of the drums and around the melody Dave had done. So I think that you actually get the brutality of Jason, Dave thinking a little out of his box with the melody,
Mm-hmm.
me getting on board with that. You take those two entities and you create a third. So sure, it's like this old school approach to things, but it has a fresh coat of paint. So it feels relevant in 2019, and that's something I'll always be proud of, is relevance in the current day.
Absolutely. Now, Blitz, the first two songs that you've given for fans to hear ahead of the release are "Last Man Standing" and "Head of a Pin," which are excellent tunes. Excellent tunes. I personally think you could have picked just about anything on the record. I'm curious, after all these years, what is it? And I know this is more of a business question than just a rock question, but what is it for you guys where you sit down and say, okay, these are the songs that we want to lead people to the record with? I mean, how do you justify "Last Man Standing" versus "Distortion" or, other songs?
That's because we're fucking smarter. That's why. We've been wearing New Jersey on our sleeve forever. "Last Man Standing" was simple. It was based on, you can tell the chemistry change in it, but for sure it says all is intact. Attention, all is intact.
Right.
Yeah, everything is working as it should be at high levels, higher levels. So it's thrash 101.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, there's something, it's been 2 years since you first heard an Overkill Thrash 101 for the first time. So to me, that was a no-brainer coming out of the box. Dee Dee Verney agreed. Dave Lynch likes it as one of his favorite, if not favorite, songs on the record. I mean, he's a thrash guy through and through at heart. So it was a no-brainer for us to say, all is well over here. I think for the second song, sure, there's brutality. Some of the most brutal drums that we've ever had are contained on "Head of a Pin," and that's the patterns that were being played. And the tempo changes, going from mid-tempo all the way up to pretty close to breakneck on the musical interludes in between the singing. The song is totally infused with melody. It's almost sing-along, but it sounds like, my God, it sounds like a massacre with a sing-along to me. And this showed instant diversity to me. The tonality of the guitar mixing with where we put the tempo. It sounded like, when the song came in, it sounded like Black Sabbath on great meth. It sounded like Black Sabbath on Breaking Bad. And that, to me, was what the diversity was about. Not that all things are just the same. All things are the same, and all things are a little bit different each time. But at the end of the day, "Head of a Pin" still says Overkill. So it's something I think we're very proud of, is to be able to get that, to be able to show some diversity in the fact that we've been doing it for this long.
Absolutely. Now you mentioned, some of the timing changes and whatnot within the song. Between "Head of a Pin" and "Believe in the Fight," those are two songs that have probably the tastiest changes of anything on the record. And they're probably, those two and "Distortion" would be my three favorites of the record, with a handful of listens so far. For you, when you're writing music, do you or the band hear those movements and those changes? Or is that just something that comes out as you're building a riff, where you start building a riff and then it starts to build and then all of a sudden somebody changes it? I mean, I'm always curious because I'm a failed musician and I only hear 4/4 time. That's all I can hear is bump, 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 bump from start to finish. I don't hear things when I'm creating like that.
I think that you get glimpses of it, when we demo things.
Okay.
And then things are changed in demos because, ideas pop up. This isn't a band where it's run by one guy. It's a band where ideas are always welcome and to try it. And I think that one idea spawns another idea, which spawns a vision. And Dee Dee Verney's really good at the tempo changes, but having somebody like Jason to work with him, I think it brought it out to a higher level. by having somebody who's used to doing that with the sticks,
right.
And with the feet. So I think the idea of having those tempo changes are sure they're to be shocking, but not to be unnatural.
Right.
If they were unnatural, it could ruin the song.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that what happens is you get glimpses of them early on, but as they continue to develop, as the first demo turns into the second, and then guys are working on stuff at home and changing things in their own studio, eventually there's a consensus that says, oh, wait a second, we all agree, or no, that is pretty good. And so it's a developmental phase. It's not just oh, here it is, and we'll just we'll go from breakneck speed to stop on a dime and then do a halftime thing. It has to develop into that.
Excellent. Now, Blitz, the one thing that I think is the shocker of the Wings of War, and I'm sure people are talking about this to you, in a million years, if I would have guessed, I would have never gotten any kind of tribute to Bruce Springsteen. I know y'all are from the same state and all, but hearing a piece of Born to Run turned into Overkill style was something I could have never envisioned happening.
And you know what's even better? It's fucking seamless.
Yeah, it is.
It's like it was always there. That song was so fun to do. I mean, we've talked before. You know that we have punk rock in us.
Sure.
I mean, we obviously don't wear it as much in our sleeves these days as we did back in the early '80s. But I think it was something that made such a great impression on us, and it's that energy has been taken with us over all these years. And I attribute that energy or that scene to one of the reasons we're around.
Right.
That it's really a part of us, and I think that's obvious. So this song was a no-brainer, but man, it brought such a smile to my face when this was happening, going in, writing the lyrics, and going back to when I was a kid, talking about going down to the shore and mouthing off to people from Philadelphia and from Pennsylvania, down the Jersey Shore, and other people go to me, why do you call it the shore? Because that's what it is. It's the shore,
right?
But we've always been ambassadors to that. And I think probably to hold your citizenship in New Jersey, you have to have a love of three artists, and that would be Sinatra, Springsteen, and Bon Jovi.
Right.
To some degree, or at least appreciate what they've done for the state and its recognition. And to put the Springsteen thing on there, to me, was just perfect. I just said, man, it only makes it that much fucking better. So again, once we went through it as a joke and just had a hell of a lot of fun with it. I mean, you could picture us rolling around in there drinking beers and having behind a microphone, just having the time of our fucking lives. But maybe as serious as we are about our music, we don't take ourselves that seriously. And it's probably one of the other reasons that we've been around this long, is that we're kind of leather skinned at this point. We'll do what we want.
Sure. Well, I can't wait till the next record when we get the Wanted Dead or Alive worked into an Overkill somewhere.
My cousin coached Richie Sambora on the high school basketball team.
Oh,
so
no kidding.
I have it in.
Perfect. Well, Blitz, let me ask you one that's just kind of out of the box, and it's an argument. It's one of those at the bar beer arguments that I have had with a zillion of my friends about your band. I am a big believer that the music that you guys have done this half of your career is superior to the original half, the initial half. And I would make the cut. I would personally make the cut at like Necroshine up versus, what would that be? From the Underground and Below Back, I guess would be the thing. I'm curious for you, who has been the creator through all of that, what you feel is the quote unquote best era of Overkill. And if you found somebody that didn't know anything about Overkill except had heard the name, and you were going to give them 8 CDs, would you give them from the first half or the second half?
God, that's a great question. Occasionally, I'll run into one of the old timers, wearing the old Field of Fire shirt, or Show No Mercy from Slayer, except it's gray and it doesn't fit them anymore.
Right, they're showing some mercy now.
Right. And you're talking metal, and the guy will go, "Yeah, man, but it's not like the good old days." I'm like, dude, you're not fucking paying attention. These are pretty good days,
yeah.
Right fucking now. So. I think that just to give it a background, I think that a big part of the second half of our career, and even the last 5 or 6 records, are for sure about a scene that was becoming healthier. Mm-hmm. I think that we've always been a reflection of the scene because we're part of it. I mean, we're part of this community. We live and we breathe it. We see people that we know for 35 years on the road who, we've gone through this with. And we see people that we know since the Ironbound record that have gone through this with us. Right. So I think it's a reflection of a healthy scene, the second half, or becoming healthier. Whereas the first half was healthy as it was being created and then was kind of like stomped on a little bit in the 90s by, other facets of music. Mm-hmm. Grunge in particular, and I mean, even there was metal bands trying to make grunge records back then. But I think that it's, I wouldn't say that one to the other is the split. I would say that there's some stuff in the beginning about us developing from the first record up to Horoscope was where we actually sunk our tent stakes, right. Where we actually put our flag in and said, okay, we're here to stay on Horoscope, because I think that everything that followed Horoscope to some degree shows itself in today's music, including that of the Wings of War. So if I had to give 8, I would give Ironbound. I mean, obviously I would give the Wings of War because of my excitement about it. Sure. But I would also give Horoscope, and I would also give the Years of Decay, From the Underground and Below, Necroshine. I think that's 6. Okay. I like the Grinding Wheel very much. It stood up for me for 2 years. I would give that. And probably Taking Over.
There you go. Awesome. Well, boy, that'd be a good day's worth of metal to listen to. That's for damn sure.
Oh boy, my neck's hurting just mentioning all those titles.
Right. Nice. Well, Blitz, you've got some cool touring getting ready to happen, and I'm sure you're going to tour all year. Talk a little bit about what's going on with you guys as the year rolls through.
Well, off to South America in about 10 days. We're down there for about 8 shows. Rolling that right into Europe when we come back. By March, we'll be in Europe for a month. The U.S. starts toward the end of April, all the way through May. Takes us to June. Going to start looking at some festivals then. I think we're doing something with Slayer in Italy. We're headlining 1 or 2 in Germany. And then 2 more tours are already being booked for September and October. So it's, it looks like we're pretty stacked from now until, let's say, Thanksgiving time. Obviously it's not touring like it used to be. It's not 8 weeks out on the road. I mean, we got to be a little bit, we got to be diligent that, as time has passed here to be able to do it at a high level. So they're 3 weeks to a month, runs. And then we all come home to get blood transfusions and live on oxygen for a week so we can go out the next month.
Right. Nice. And did I see right that you're doing the Megadeth cruise?
Yeah, Dave got us involved in it. We've known Dave from the beginning. Sure. And, we've stayed loosely in contact and sometimes tightly over all these years. But I always have great respect for each other. And I was happy to be invited. Plus, it's going to be fun with that whole lineup. I mean, geez, talk about God, if it was a hockey game, you'd never know who'd win. If it was a football game, I think the West Coast would win. They're bigger than us.
Nice. Very nice, man. Well, Blitz, the new record, it's called Wings of War. It is, it's overkill, man. It's definitely not for the weak. It's definitely for people that like good pounding heavy metal, thrash metal. And everybody should check it out. And you know the drill, man. As a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick the closing track from the record, maybe tell us a story about it. So what would you like us to wrap this one up with?
Oh, God, I want to pick Garden State, but I only did it because we talked about it so much, but I won't. I will pick Head of a Pin. It was actually released today as a lyric video, but this was a song that took my input, was the hardest one for me to complete because it evolved so much as time went on through the song. There was so many changes that happened through its evolution as it started becoming a whole song. But when it was done on my end, and I knew it, I'm sitting right here where I'm talking to you, I said, oh, that's it. And I sent it out to all the other guys. I mean, I immediately got all these thumbs up back that said, no, that is it. And so it's probably my most proudest moment on this record. most proudest. Did I say that? Most proudest.
You can.
It's probably my most proud moment on this record because of the amount of time that I actually put into it.
All right, well, let's check it out right now. It is Head of a Pin. It's Overkill right here on your Classic Metal Show.